Welcome, everybody, to the Resident Community Experience webinar by Coliving University. It's a big pleasure to have you all. For those who are new to these webinars, they're part of a series called Coliving University that we've launched with ArtofCo, and our desire is to bring you through all of the steps that you have to go through as a co-living entrepreneur, starting with like market trends, concept development, business models. And today we are on the sixth session, and we're going to talk about resident community experience, which I personally think is the most innovative part that co-living can really bring. So just a few words about ArtofCo. We're a platform dedicated to empowering co-living entrepreneurs. We run a co-living incubator. We have some resources, books. We have our weekly newsletter called Everything Co-living, for those who don't know it. We'll also offer advisory. And one of the main things that we love is just creating content. But one of the things, just before we step into today, is that we've run a co-living incubator, which we're still running, and we're actually promoting now for the first time our second batch, which is going to start in May. So for those of you who are currently building their co-living space that want to get an experience for like 3 months, to get helped across all of the different pillars, and also be part of a group of fellow entrepreneurs, feel free, you can apply now. And feel free to also get in touch with us after this webinar. So more info on ArtofCo, but for today, the main topic is resident experience. And so the question is, how can you make the most out of today? And today, would love to ask you if you can grab pen and paper, or grab your virtual tool, because would love you today to come up with your resident journey. So we're gonna walk through today like the different steps of what a resident goes through and what are the steps that you could include. And we hope that this webinar is gonna give you some actionable insights on how you're gonna build your resident journey. So we're gonna go through a bunch of exercises today on the call. So we're gonna have every time like 1 or 2 minutes so that you can do them, and it's gonna be a bit more interactive. So I hope you enjoy this. And before we get started, I would love to hear from somebody here on this call what they think is a resident community experience about. Just generally speaking, would love to have your 2 cents. Maybe if 1 or 2 people can share what they think about it, or how they understand resident and community experience. Would anybody want to share?
Hi, Gui.
Yeah, I would say that the resident and community experience is basically the heartbeat of your, of your community, of your co-living operation.
Nice, I like that. Yes. Okay, great. Anybody else? All right. Well, I love what you said, David, about like the heartbeat. And indeed, resident community experience is really what the resident, which is your main user, is going to go through, right? So it is the heartbeat of a community. But I want to clarify something. And that is that a lot of people say community happens by itself. And there's something about that statement which is just unfortunately not true. Because I've been living personally, I don't know about you, but like I've been living in some types of co-living, including, for example, student housing, where actually I didn't feel part of a community, and where actually we didn't get along with my roommates. And so community can happen by itself, but it's actually not guaranteed. And you as a co-living operator, at the end, you want to give people a great experience. And part of that experience is the community experience. Now, there's different types of communities, right? Like I kind of mapped out like the extremes. One side is the kind of respectful neighbor, right? So you could have a community of people that just respect one another. They don't spend time so much, but there's a feeling of a sensation of just respect and peace. The other extreme would be like this notion of chosen family, people that are really bonding. You see them like at night, every dinner, interacting, cooking, and really taking care of one another. That's beautiful too, but it's really, really hard as well to create, and it's a very specific target audience. And then there's something like in between, right? We call it the party friends, but basically living in a community where you can attend events, where you can meet people, and there's a good vibe. So there's a fundamental question for you in your space, like what type of community you imagine? And the more you want to go to this notion of chosen family, the more you're going to have to create processes. You're going to have to create activities and initiatives. And so that's what that's what today is about. When we talk about community, we always say community equals alignment and overcoming differences. What does it mean? That means that, like, if you have conflict in your community, for example, the kitchen doesn't work, or just the bathroom is dirty, or some fundamental basics, that's going to create friction. So you want to overcome that. And we talked about this in our architecture and design webinar. What we're going to talk about today is how can we as an operator kind of artificially create alignment between people. That means how can we make people meet? How can we make them realize that they have common interests so that they want to connect? And for that, every resident kind of goes through a specific journey. That is from one co-living operator in Singapore. When you look at it, relationship comes with time, right? There's this moment at the beginning called ice breaking, where you welcome the new residents. Then you have more opportunities to meet and people start forming and bonding. And then it's after a certain time, residents begin to form their own tribe. And then, only then, do they become very active in your community. But they have to go through these first steps. And the main takeaway of today is that community happens by itself, but only when you have the right supportive framework. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at every step of that journey. And I'm going to show you what are the processes, what are the frameworks that you can apply to your space. So let's get started. First of all, the one framework that you need to know about is that map of the user and resident journey. And it's going to be hugely beneficial. So let me walk you through the different stages, and then we're going to go in depth into each of them. Now, when a resident goes through your co-living, there are 7 different stages. The first one is space discovery. That one is pretty obvious. That involves discovering your space. Usually it's like online, finding you on a website, and then usually applying. That leads the residents to the second phase called curation phase. It's very important, and curation doesn't happen at every co-living, but we believe it's very important. And this is the curation phase. Is this time and space where you can interview the residents, where you can make sure they're a right fit, where they can make sure they're a right fit for this concept as well. And then only do they get accepted. And then they go into the third stage. Once they're accepted, they go into the onboarding stage. And onboarding really is your time to welcome and integrate the resident as fast as possible into the community. Onboarding can mean that you welcome the resident personally. It can mean that you introduce them to some former roommates beforehand. There's a lot of different steps, but the crucial part really here is onboarding. And if you as an operator invest a lot into onboarding, I can guarantee that all of the steps afterwards will be easier. Next to onboarding is adaptation. So once the person moved in, usually there's an adaptation phase for a few weeks. That adaptation phase means that the residents, this is the phase where they're going to meet some other friends, where they're going to form their first friendships, form their first tribe. And it's very important to make sure that the resident in that phase is getting hooked into your concept. And then happens the communal life. The communal life means the normal day-to-day life of residents when they live at your space. And that's being influenced by things like events, activities. And finally, the resident decides to leave. They enter the almost final step, which is called offboarding. And here too, you as an operator can do something. You can do, for example, interviews. You can get feedback. You can ask that person for a referral, whether they have a friend that wants to move in. And then there's the afterlife, meaning that even if your former resident now doesn't live at your space, they can still be part of your community. They could still attend events. They could still be part of a referral program. So there's ways for you to also involve your former residents and make sense of that. Now, let's go into stages and we'll go stage by stage. But first, before we go in here, just wants to open up the floor. Does anybody of you have any questions regarding the different stages? And does this all make sense to you?
If you want, you can just unmute yourself and speak for a minute.
All right. Feel free to also drop your questions in the chat.
Hi, guys.
Then,
Sorry.
perfect. Hi, Clara.
Question. How are you? Good to see you.
Good.
I think you're right on the journey, on the resident journey, curation, onboarding, adaptation. What happens is, and I think it's varies by region, is what happens when they move here for a specific purpose. In our case is, oh, I just got an incredible job, so I'm going to work full time, or I'm going to study full time. And they mostly at the beginning just want a place to live and don't care more about the resident journey or how the space is like. They just want, a place that fits their budget and their needs, and off we go. How do you, in this timeline, make them usable and adapt to the idea of co-living? Or this, you are part of a community. It's just not a place to sleep, but you are part of a community. How do you work on that transition? You know what I mean?
It's a good question. Look, I'd say, I mean, there's two things, right? In an ideal case scenario, I guess that you curate your residents, right? So that you make sure that you don't get people in that want a place to live, but actually people that resonate with your concept and want a place to live. One of the downsides of co-living, very simply, is that co-living offers accessible housing, right? Usually it's very easy to book a co-living space. So on one side, while it's an advantage for the co-living operator, sometimes it's a disadvantage because you can just get people that just want a place to stay. So the first thing, and we're going to look at this right now, the curation is like, there's a few things that you can do already at the curation. And then maybe we can, maybe if you want, I'd love to have your opinion in like 20 minutes once we go through the slides, because the idea here is that we create a journey that helps people to integrate. So I'll give you a concrete example. We've been working with one co-living space in France called Cool. And they have around like 120 residents per building. And then one of their buildings, like usually they have 20% of the residents, they come because they really love the communal concept, but 80% they come because it's a easy place to live.
Yeah.
Now they created certain things. For example, they made sure that everybody that joins, I just want to make sure, is my internet stable?
Yes, all good.
Okay. So what in the case of Kurul, for example, we made sure that, for example, once a resident joins, they get added to the WhatsApp group. There's a picture taken of that person. Everybody welcomes them. Then they host certain types of events. And there was this one person that was he was the director of the local airport. And at the beginning, he only came like 5 days a week. And he was not part of the community, right? He just wanted to be there as a place to stay. But they kept offering over time, like different types of events. They kept also talking to him, having check-ins with that person. And after around 3 to 4 months, that person changed the mindset and now found like a life partner in the co-living. I mean, he's 50, but he found a life partner. He's the one of the most ardent one organizing events. And that's an example of a resident that was able to change from somebody that just came for flexibility to somebody that actually really liked the community. So to respond to your question, there's not a universal solution. Ideally, you catch people at the very beginning and make sure they're right fit. And for most of them, if they just want to come here for the housing, they will just stay here for the housing. But some of these people, I think you can convert them by showcasing them proactively what community can be.
Hi, Guy. It's Matt. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Matt.
Yes. Just wanted to add a little something on the top of it. We are like Palma Co-Living. We have a couple of properties, like 45 bedrooms now. And what we have seen this very specific type. And what we have done as a consequence, we just reinforce the message, the impact we wanted to have on the values that we share at Palma Co-Living, the conscious values and everything related to conscious stay, which is also being there and sharing, having this ability of caring on the community. And the fact that we just put a couple of messages, not only in the website, but also in the automation emailing that goes before you arrive. And also, as long as someone arriving, and as Guy said, like a proper onboarding, the first minute to explain what is it about, what we are fighting for, what are the values. And I think every point of contact before the first page, in between during the process of booking with emailing and onboarding, will lead you to a proper to a proper target that will understand and will be part of this community. And you cannot control this 1% of people that actually play on the price or give it an opportunity to book at your place, even if they were not part of the community, but they took the best rate. It happens. In that case, these guys sometimes can create like a little bit of toxic atmosphere. It happens, but you can remove this by this proper message communication.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. So for you, you put a lot of emphasis on your communication. And do you have some sort of like interview process, or how does it work for you?
Yes, until now we like every leads wanted to join us. We had to run an interview, video calls as part of Palma Coliving special application form. And now we are growing to the goal for us is like about 100 bedrooms at the end of the year. We didn't have much choice to create a new booking engine system with a property management system that is perfect to gather all the leads, but as a consequence, you cannot keep doing as scaling up like a video call. So what we are going to do is like offering this opportunity to book directly, but also still having a call with the booking manager. And every time someone is booking, we have the right to decline the booking, because we systematically like send an application form with a video, proper welcoming video, something a little bit different, so that they feel integrated, they know what we are sharing, and we ask more information to gather data of everyone in order to know better the customers, right? That's what we do. And
okay, thanks for sharing. So like in your case, you're going from having interviews to now like trying to automate that, but still like leaving a human touch, right, with like video.
yes, exactly. And that's where the message is so important, especially when you are going to filter a little bit less. At least you do it a little bit more than the others. And I think that's the value that we have at Palma Coliving. So I just encourage everyone to do this, at least, form of communication to understand what you are standing for in your co-living.
Yes, super agreed. And actually, so now we're gonna talk about stage one curation, but actually the original stage one really is space discovery, and it's your marketing, right? Like, and the way you communicate about your space can help you like attract the right people. For this, we hosted did we host a marketing webinar? No, not yet. I think we're going to host it.
No, we are going to host it.
We're going to host it.
Yeah, it's in April.
Great. So let's talk about the first step, and that's curation, right? And it's also like, let's see, like maybe clarify for you something that this here. But why curation is important? I mean, it's very simple. Curation means that you have a control over the types of residents that are gonna come in, right? So it helps you to be more selective, to identify some of the bad apples, or maybe people that don't have a great vibe, and also allows you to have a basic checkup. Actually, one more thing that it does is that if it's harder for you, if it's harder to join your space, for example, people have to do an interview, they're gonna perceive it as also as more honorable to be part of your space. So there's this like psychological effect where also people like feel like, oh, I'm finally part of that club, and I can't join it, so like now I want to make the most out of it. Now, what can you do? I'm gonna show like two scenarios, right? Like the one scenario is the scenario that has almost no curation, and that's literally like you do like online registration, maybe a quick background check, you send a booking link, done. Here you have zero control over who is gonna come in, right? The only control you could have here is like with a bit of marketing. Now, here's what, for example, the more intimate type of co-living model would look like. First, like for example, you could have like very strong like criteria for your space. For example, making your marketing really about, like in the case of Palma, like digital nomads, maybe even successful digital nomads, right? And having like a very strong niche. Then you could have an application form, maybe a video. Then you could have a one-on-one interview. And some co-living spaces also offer like group interviews so that the new residents can meet the people beforehand. And you could have a group voting. Now, this is a lot of steps. I'm not suggesting that you have to do that, but this would be kind of really the most extreme version of it. What we did in our former co-living space is called lifestyle engineering. We had first a quick interest form, then we would have an interview, and then we would accept or reject somebody. When you look at, for example, another co-living in the Canada, Chelsea House, they have a contact questionnaire, then they have a sales phone call, and then they have another call of the founders before getting rejected and rejected. Right? So it does take time, but it does ensure that the quality of leads is better. Now, what can you do in that phase? So here are like a few things that you can do in the curation phase, right? You could have application form, a personality test, one-on-one interview. This is the time where you also have the contract. You could have like legal or credit assessments. You could have like an AI, for example, like chatting with a chatbot. You could also have like people matching software. So these are like different types of steps that you could include. And now we're gonna take just like 30 seconds from everything that we've shown so far. What could be maybe like 1 or 2 steps that you can add to your own journey? Feel free to just take notes and reflect. And actually feel free to share them in the group if there's anything that you think you could change.
Also, one thing I would like to add that as we start, we can do a lot more things in order to build a brand or our messaging clearly. But as we grow and as we start scaling and have 100s or 200 beds, some of it will start getting automated, because then it probably will not be possible from a unit economics perspective to make sure that you still have all those steps, right? So the curation journey also evolves with the way our business evolves, right? If it's a small 10 unit co-living versus a 200 unit co-living, the process has to evolve. And that's why we have all these pointers here, which it's just from a plain application form to a chatbot or a voice recognition, right? It can, right from this extreme to this extreme, you can build your own journey according to the scale and the business model that you have.
Yes, super aligned. And then maybe one thing also to add to that is like, you need to figure out in your process when you start, what are the types of processes you actually do not want to scale. I'll say a word on that later. All right. Now, so now that you built the processes for your first part, which is like the interviews or the curation, now we're going into the second phase, which is more the onboarding and adaptation. And oh, Juan Federico, yes.
Hello, Gui.
Hello.
I was wondering, in the curation phase, isn't it a thin line between discrimination and curation?
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Yes, there's a thin line. And so in a lot, I mean, there's in a lot of countries, it's you're not able to, it's tricky, right? Because you're not able to discriminate based on like race, gender, religion. Now I guess the point here is it's not so much about discrimination, rather it is that if you are able to build, for example, a waiting list and you have more applicants than you actually have supply, that you have a choice over which of these applicants are part of it, and not based on race, religion, etc., but more based on personality and whether actually there's alignment with the product.
Thank you.
It's not a legal answer, but I don't have the legal answer.
No, it's perfect.
No, and one thing that I would like to add, Guy, here is that a lot of times it's more about letting them choose us rather than we choosing them. So we are presenting ourselves in those curation calls saying that this is who we are, this is what we stand for, this is our values. If they match, come join us. But we don't explicitly say that don't join us if you are no, or this is not for you. So it's a way, that's why it's called curation and not selection. Because in a way, we are also presenting ourselves to them for them to select us and for us to curate.
Yes, and actually I wanted to add something from Palma Co-Living side. We also did an article why you shouldn't join us. And actually it was quite helpful for everyone, you know, a little trick to know why they shouldn't join and everything that we're not looking for. It works.
I like that. That's smart. Yes.
Thank you. Perfect.
All right, so now that you chose your residence, they're gonna come to your space. So this part is the most crucial part. And why is it the most crucial part? Because this is all about creating the first impression now. Like as soon as somebody like says yes and pays you for your product, they're gonna want to have the experience. So you want to give them the best experience. And you also want to help them to form the good habits and create momentum from the very beginning. I don't know where I got this quote from. I don't know if somebody from Urban Campus is on this call, but I had this quote in one of my slides. And it said like in the first 30 days, new residents attend at least 2 events and meet at least 10 people. And that was kind of, I think, the objective of Urban Campus. And I remember also that Brad Hagervis, I'm very bad at pronouncing his last name, the former CEO of Common, he once shared at a conference that if residents are able to create 2 or more connections within the first like 2 weeks, then the renewal rate goes up 50%. And so for them, the main KPI was like how quickly can we integrate people within the community? There really is this time frame of the first couple of weeks. So let's run again through 2 scenarios, right? If you go on the left, this would be the traditional housing way, which is, excuse my language, kind of shitty. So it would do like a self check-in. You would arrive. There might be, maybe you might interact with like some community manager or barman or something that's at the space. You might get a welcome email and then an email with the events happening. And that is it. You literally are going to go into your room and are maybe a bit confused about where to start right now. The other extreme would be to create an entire journey, right? And it could be like this. Like imagine that you booked a space and you get already automatically like an email of like welcoming. And then you get like 2 days later, another email with like a list of the residents who are part of it. Then somebody on WhatsApp writes you, which is the community manager, and says like, hey, Guy, I'm really looking forward to seeing you in 2 months. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here for you. In 2 months, you arrive, you get a check-in mail the day before, and that community manager is going to welcome you personally. And not only will they welcome you personally, but instead of just like welcoming you and showing you the room, they're first going to introduce you to the other residents of the space, right? The ones that, for example, in the common area. So you're already going to meet somebody. And then then they're going to say like, hey, we want to introduce you to the rest of the community. Can we take a picture of you? You're going to take a picture of the new residents and you're going to put them into the WhatsApp group and you're going to introduce them. You're going to say like, hey, everyone, this is Guy. He just arrived. Guy's a co-living expert for the last 5 years. He's written a book and he's really passionate about co-living and he's going to join us for the next year, right? And then what you can also do is you can introduce that person to some key people. For example, you can introduce them to the neighbors. Just knock at the door, introduce them, and make sure that already that new resident has some like physical connection with people. Then you can invite them to the next event. And then after that, once a resident is welcome, after a week, you could schedule a coffee with the new resident, with Guy, and having a check-in. Spend like 15 minutes, half an hour, understand like, how are you doing? How's your experience so far? Were you able to connect with people? Do you have any ideas for events? Is there anything that's annoying you? There's a lot of questions that you can ask and that you can make, and you can help the residents, especially in this beginning phase. So give you an example here at Star City. Star City had like their onboarding was like this. It's like first residents went through the community guidelines agreement documents, and that was something that they signed online. That was kind of like the priming with the values, like you said, Matt. And then once they arrived, there was a staff member that welcomed them personally over lunch, and at the same time, they got also a personal welcoming email from the founders. And then within 2 days, they would receive an introduction to another community member, and they would have one welcoming event being hosted in the first 10 days. So they would usually batch it up. That was their process of onboarding. Now, Amit, you just asked a question, do you think personal welcoming needs to be in person? Can it be in FaceTime? Look, it can be in FaceTime, but it doesn't have to be. The more you can bring in interactional elements in this journey, the better it is. And maybe if you do, for example, a self check-in, then it'd be really important that you have another check-in like afterwards, and that you maybe introduce them like virtually on the community chat. But it would be very important to compensate the fact that you weren't there for the personal welcoming. So here's, for example, our recommendation of like how in an ideal co-living space, if I would run one today, I think I would do something like this. I would create an email sequence before they arrive, welcoming them, telling them about the space values. And I would also like write them via WhatsApp or have like a personal talk with them and introduce them already to some of the other members of the space. On the arrival day, I would do a personal welcoming. I would do the picture taking, take a picture, hang it on the lobby. So you have the new resident there. Promoting them in the group, and then afterwards having also like a small welcome gift. And in our co-living spaces, we would buy like some like locally made chocolate, and we would have a little welcoming letter that was written like by hand, and people would find it very cute, right? And then after they arrive, after a week, I would do a one-on-one check-in. I would literally take that new resident, invite them for coffee, and spend half an hour with them to understand like how they are doing, how they could be integrated within the space, and also if they have already any issues or conflicts that start arising, because then you can solve them quickly. These will be the three purposes of the check-in. And then I would introduce them to more members. So these are in total 8 steps. Sorry, 7 plus 3, 10 steps. You could even reduce them. But here's the fact. The truth is, for a lot of co-living spaces, the only thing they have is like a welcoming email. And that's not enough. So it's important that you choose at least 3, 4, or 5 steps in this journey. And now, here is all of the things you can do. And I'm going to give you again like 2 or 3 minutes to go through that. I'm not going to read it out loud. Just read it yourself. All of the steps that you can do before arrival, on arrival, and after arrival. And I would love you to choose 2 or 3 again. Feel free to put them in a group choose 2 or 3 that you would add to your space.
While all of us are doing that, I would like to share one anecdote, right? I've had some of my best experiences in co-living spaces where I got a handwritten note, just a simple note by, "Hey, Mayank, happy to have you here. We love to show you around. These are the 2 things that you can do." Just a 4-line message made my day, brought a smile on my face, made sure that even if there were issues, I was adjusting even without them asking, and I was helping them help me, right? So that change of tone happens immediately when you see that somebody is going out of the way to make that effort, right? So I think that's one recommendation that I would definitely ask people to do more often than not, because in the world of technology, we are losing a lot of that human touch. So I think that is something that I would recommend.
Yeah, and same for Palma Co-living. I think the most important, the key learning from it is like every time someone is about to arrive, we send him a landing guide so that they know kind of the best tips around. We also make sure they are going to introduce themselves on the WhatsApp group so that everyone get to know them before. And once they arrive, we do like a little welcoming pack to create like more intention, such as a welcoming card or like some little gift, depends of what they are looking for. And then for sure, they receive an automatic email after a few days once they arrive to ask if they have anything to improve during the stay, or anything they've seen, because we know that some of them are introverts, they won't say anything. And they're fine with it, but we want to give the high standards. So by doing so, we receive some checkup, and we try to make sure it works very, very fast, thanks to someone that can be reactive on site, a happiness officer. And I think just with these few steps at the very first days, which is also the very first impression, then you stand up for some higher levels, and you show you care. And that's the most important for the retention and for people after to enjoy their stay. And one of the key, of course, the event could be always a plus to make the added value compared to other co-living. And I think just the first day when someone arrives, letting him know what is the next event, so that, I mean, but yourself as a new guest, you don't know anyone, and you just want to meet new people. And if there is no one to introduce you anyone, then you have to do it by yourself. And again, it's like every other experience. and it's not really creating the difference. So what if you can just let the new guy know what will be the next event, so that he know as an anchor to understand when he can introduce himself and being seen. And that, I think, are the keys of the onboarding.
Super aligned, super aligned. And then I'm also seeing how, like, Viraj also mentioned that you can have like welcome kits or welcome gifts, also for branding. Makes a lot of sense. And then one more thing I would add is like, it's the element of surprise, right? So for example, if you arrive in a co-living space and there's a welcoming event, it kind of makes sense. But if you arrive into a co-living space and maybe you have like the community manager that's like, hey, can I help you rearrange your room? Right. Or I know one space, what they would do whenever somebody would arrive, they would ask him, what's your favorite song? And then they would put it like on the speakers, and that's how they would welcome him. So you can do like small things that are just a bit like out of the box, and where you really add like a personal touch. And it's creating really like the first impression. All right. So I hope you're gonna get the representation either way after this call. Now, ideally, here's what we're at. We are now 4 weeks in. That means the new resident, let's say me, I've been living there for like 4 weeks. And I went through this onboarding. I made some new friends. I already have my first little clique. How is my day-to-day going to look like? And what do you need to take care of it? So I wanted to show you something that's called the wheel of involvement. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but it's basically like different ways that you can involve a participant into your project. The simplest way is informing. So that's like one directional. That would be, for example, you sending out a newsletter with like the weekly events. Another way is consultation. So here it's a two-way flow information. That can be, and that's very important, stuff like feedback forms, even polls and WhatsApp groups, feedback, like even like reviews. So these are ways for you to gather feedback from participants. And then you can have people participate in your ideas. So imagine now that you're hosting a networking event and you know that there's one DJ in part of your residence, you could ask them to participate as a DJ. Or you can even co-produce events. That means that maybe you have a DJ that wants to organize an event from A to Z. And it would be even a more ideal scenario. Why am I showing this? Because the idea is that you move and you involve the residents more and more into your concept. There will be moments where it's just informing the residents. There will be other moments where you're just going to get feedback and you are going to organize the events. But the ideal case is that actually a lot of the activities are being co-produced with residents, because that would take a lot of actually weight away from you. And it would also involve the residents way more, giving them this notion of ownership. So there's two things that you can do. The one is top-down events. And here, top-down means that it's organized by you, the operator. Our recommendation is that you choose a few key events that are going to be part of your brand. It could be once a month, a social club night or party. It could be once a week, a yoga event. It could be both combined, actually, right? So I would pick a few values. Usually co-living spaces do it around 3 types of values. One is health. So everything to do with like yoga, workshop, meditation, gym, workout. The other one is professional growth. And the third one is social growth. So you could think about it this way and choose like 2 or 3 events that are repetitive and where people know these events are happening and they are part of the co-living brand. And then the other part that you have to work on is the bottom-up events. That means like events that are being co-produced or co-organized by your residents. And here there's 4 main things that are very important in order to do that. One is to identify the so-called power users. So the role of the community managers really is also to understand the residents and incentivize them to host events. For example, as a community manager, if I'm a community manager, I would know most of or actually all the residents that are living in this building. And after the check-ins, I would have a good impression of who is who. And I would see also who are the most social, communal-driven residents. And it's with them that I want to create something. So I would want to figure out what are their strengths, what are their interests. And it could be that maybe somebody has a job in marketing and has a lot of like marketing challenges. They could create a marketing mastermind. Maybe somebody else is an artist and could create like an afternoon of painting, right, on Saturday. So there's a lot of ways that the space can actually empower the interests of your residents. And it's up to you to talk to them and to figure out which event could we create that would actually help them. So that's one part. The second part is really important, is always to get this two-way flow with your residents by having feedback and interest form, right? So that you understand what are the types of events that your residents want to host. The third point that's important, and that's Amit, I'm going to come to your point, it's a shared communication channel. A lot of co-living spaces are trying to use apps. In some case, it works a bit. From our understanding and from our impression, unfortunately, we haven't seen, and maybe like if there's somebody in a group, please feel free to call us out, but we haven't seen any co-living space who have like an application where more than 50% of residents are engaged in it. And that's kind of sad. And so actually a lot of co-living spaces go back to just common channels, and that is WhatsApp or Telegram. And that's very simple to manage, and the open rate is just insanely high. So if I were a co-living operator, I would create one generic WhatsApp group where everybody is in there and only admins can post. And I would create another WhatsApp group where residents can actually interact. And finally, the last thing that you can do is a sort of ambassador program. So you could also incentivize certain residents to take on official roles, for example, event management or social media, in exchange of something. So it could be an exchange of a discount on rent. It could be an exchange of getting like promotion across your channels. You can figure that out with your residents. But these are the 4 ways that you need to nail down in order to create organic bottom-up events. So if we look, for example, at Urban Campus in Madrid, they had these like 3 pillars. They had like, in terms of, we're talking here about top-down events. So we had like Grow, so they would organize like professional events. They had Learn, which was more about like health. And the final, which was Creating, that was more like social. So they found their 3 pillars, and all of their events were on these 3 pillars. So my recommendation for you is choose like 2 or 3 themes that you really want to have, and some like signature events that are going to be part of your space. So again, I'm going to pause here for a minute. Feel free to put like your thoughts, or like also unmute yourself if you have any thoughts or best practices. And I'm just going to give you 1 minute to reflect.
One thing is bottom-up events always create better, like in terms of the engagement or feeling of ownership, it always creates a better community than top-down. Because if you're not invested, as you showed the wheel, right? If it's just a one-way flow or a single-way communication, people may come or attend those events as a transaction rather than a relation. So I think, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to maybe interrupt, but I wonder how big these WhatsApp groups can be. I mean, I'm part of many WhatsApp groups for different interests. And sooner or later, it all starts that someone starts sending jokes or their like views on the war and views on this and that, and just all goes to somewhere where it should not have been. And I just wonder how big the community can be so that people are not starting sending things that do not interest others and stuff. And okay, that was the question.
Right. So one thing that I tell you that there are ways in which you can, now WhatsApp gives you enough feature that you can have some of the groups with admin only features where it becomes more of an announcement and broadcast channel. Somewhere people are open and you have stronger rules. You can create specific, suppose somebody is promoting or somebody is talking about politics or some other opinions. You can always create subgroups within a community and ask people to discuss it there, and other people who are interested can join there, rather discussing that on the main group. So that it doesn't distract other people, and people who are opting in to be part of the other group can have those conversations. So with the current structure of WhatsApp, that's possible, and that becomes it becomes easier to manage it on WhatsApp that way. But you need to have like initially when we are setting up the community or when somebody is integrated, there needs to be a bit of a strong moderation, and once people get used to it, it becomes easier and easier.
Yes, I think I totally agree. From Palma Coliving on the side, top down and bottom up. Basically, we like to use the bedroom free for the ambassador program. For us, it's about having some people that come and join, doing some content, and in exchange of stay. And I think this regular event that we host in every city to support the like-minded people is one of the key process to have people involving them for the word of mouth, and that visiting your space. I think this is one of the important growth process. Keep these key pillars events, like you said, Guy, signature events. It's no need to have like a budget for that. It's just about gathering people, but leading them to a specific place, booking a table, whatever we do. For us, we do a Tuesday normal event in every city in Spain where we are, and it works quite well. And yeah, at the end, like having someone that could help doing that, at least gathering them, that will be a good driver for the growth.
Mm-hmm. And look, like you have one advantage is that like your concept is to have different houses and also different cities. Now, I think like in the case of Vita, like it would be more thinking about what if I have a building of like 300 residents, and I think the main one way to think about it, right, is in terms of clusters. So I think ideally like a group of more than like 30, 40 people on WhatsApp is overwhelming. You're like, I personally already have a hard time following up with people that contact me. So like having these groups where you're overwhelmed is not good. And that's why like my suggestion really would be you could also do a hybrid. So imagine that you have 300 residents. I would do one WhatsApp group really that's only admin. Why? Because then this way, whenever you have an event, whenever you have something, you can promote it to everybody. And then you could have optional groups. So it could be interest-based, but it also maybe by floors, right? You have floor number 7, where you have like 40 residents on floor number 7, and they are all getting into one WhatsApp group. So you can think about like what are smaller communities here.
Yes, I think that's one of the key, because you have two choices for these big numbers. Either you choose like a Slack or Discord community, which is perfect to gather like specific chat. Either you choose like having one admin group, and every admin group does have a specific WhatsApp group per floor. I think that's a great idea to do this little cluster.
Yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yes.
Can I maybe offer one more? Hi, my name is Lisa, and I am starting to facilitate co-housing or co-living groups to start their communities. And one way of organizing that I haven't practiced yet, however, it's an idea. It's called, it's within these circles. It's sociocracy. And I heard us talk, with the empowerment and setting up groups where they can autonomously decide. Sociocracy is a way which you can practice, and you can perhaps offer these ambassadors that I heard one person speak about. You can teach them those, even though it's for a short amount of time, but that would be a way that you can organize when you have 300 members, for example.
Thanks for sharing. Would you mind maybe like just writing in the group about sociocracy, or like what the reference you had?
Yes, I can do that.
Thanks for sharing. Okay, I want to go quickly into the last stage before we head off, and that is offboarding and afterlife. So it's time for the resident to leave, but it's actually not the end, right? And there's certain things you can do. So I'm gonna go again, the easy way would be there's a self-checkout, somebody leaves, receives a thank you email, and that's it. Sure, fine. But you can do better, right? Imagine that you would have a personal checkout. Actually, the community manager comes and says, thank you, Guy, for being here, gives you a hug. It was great to have you here. Here's a little gift for us. We actually collected some signature from all of your friends. And then you actually use the time to create an interview. You just record a 2-minute interview so that you have this like this interview that you can use for your website. You also get a feedback from the resident. And then afterwards, you even ask the resident, hey, do you have any referrals? Do you have anyone else of your friends that wants to move in here? Because that's something that some co-living spaces do. They first ask the resident, do you know somebody? And then if they don't, then they open it up for general applications. But ideally, you want to have, like, if it was a good resident, you want to have people that are like-minded. And then you can put them also into the alumni newsletter where you promote, for example, of the events that are open. So here again, a few things you can do: a goodbye gift. You can communicate on further news or events, in thank you meeting, invitation to further events, a goodbye picture that you can also put on social media, discounts for future stays. You can also, yes, feedback and learnings. You can also have some types of interaction with the virtual community. Maybe that person is still part of a wider WhatsApp group, right? Maybe by then you actually had a Slack channel and you're gonna leave that person there. You can even host goodbye events. Some co-living spaces host like goodbye ceremonies where everybody just comes and they have a drink and also share one thing they appreciated about the person. And you could also vote on upcoming locations. I know that some co-living space like outside grew like this. They just asked their former residents, hey, where do you want us to open our next location? And that's how they got like feedback on where to open it. So these are like the steps that you can do at the end. And then ideally, you went through all of these stages and you created your own roadmap. And that's something that we've been doing also with a lot of co-living operators. But your goal ultimately is you want internally to know what are the steps that we're committing to what are the steps that we're committing to that the resident will go through. And once you've really mapped out your steps and you have your internal process, that's going to be your internal, really your internal IP, right? And it's going to make your space stand out. Now, we don't have time to go into this and how it looks like, but it's very simple. It's really that you put all of the steps that you're having, and then from there, you can really build out your internal processes, map out your tech stack, define what team structure is needed. And if anybody wants to do that, feel free to hit us up or hit up me and Mayank. We can help you with this as well. That was it for today. Thanks very much for being here. Now, a few steps on like going further. This is not the last webinar. We still have like 3 to go this year, or as part of this cycle of Coliving University. The next one is going to be on technology, and it's going to be led by Mayank here, who's our tech expert. So very looking forward to that. And then we're going to talk about sales and marketing, and then we're going to go into operations in May. So we're looking forward. We're going to send you the invite for the next event. And also for those of you who are in Europe, currently there's the event on March 11th called Housing Matters that's happening, where we're also going to be part of it. A lot of co-living operators, investors, developers, and generally like real estate professionals are going to be there. So we highly recommend, if you guys can make it, to go check out the event because it's actually going to gather a lot of the real estate professionals. And there's a lot of...
say hi. And do say hi if you're coming.
Yes. And there's a lot of side events happening as well during MIPI. Finally, again, yes, we open up the second incubator happening in May. So if you're building up your co-living space and you want to be part of a group of 10 other co-living entrepreneurs and projects, get advisory, and also like go through all of these stages in more details, you can apply starting today. And finally, what you'll receive in our follow-up email is going to be access to this recording, also the presentation, so that you have all of these slides, info about the Housing Matters event and the incubator application. And please, our recommendation is take yourself some time, go through the slides, and choose your steps. Choose what is going to be your resident journey. What are the 5 things that every resident is going to go through that's non-negotiable and that you're going to master, and it's going to make your experience stand out? That's a big thought for today. Thank you so much for being here, and we wish you all an amazing day. Thank you for being part of this, and feel free to shoot us an email. We've been more responsive recently via emails because now we're getting things in order, and it'd be really a big pleasure to get in touch with you, talk to you, and also let us know if you're coming at MeetBeam. It would be great to see you there.